Welcome to the Have More Fun podcast. In this episode, I talk with Amanda Inchaustegui about dealing with criticism, how to feel more empowered in our everyday lives, and how to have more fun when things don't go as planned.
Like, I don't want to hold you accountable because I don't want to be responsible, or I got enough stuff to deal with on my own. We don't hold each other accountable, or somebody doesn't hold me accountable, but we hold space for people to give an account.
There's a hotel in Los Angeles that's painted canary yellow, has a pool roughly the size of an elementary school 4-square grid, and is a converted 2-story apartment building built in the 1950s. And did I mention that it doesn't have an elevator? Also, it is one of the highest ranked hotels in LA. Out of 3,216 reviews on TripAdvisor, nearly 90% of people rated it as either excellent or very good. Pretty impressive for a little hotel who is competing with big chains like the Four Seasons and the Marriott. Let me introduce you to the Magic Castle Hotel and their underwhelming accommodations, but extraordinary ability to make a hotel stay something you will remember for the rest of your life. The Magic Castle Hotel's trick in capturing the heart and positive reviews of the people who stay there is found in a term coined by Chip and Dan Heath in their book, The Power of Moments. They have learned how to be occasionally remarkable. There's a cherry red phone mounted to a wall near the pool. Pick it up and someone answers, "Hello, popsicle hotline." You then place your order, and minutes later, a staffer wearing white gloves delivers your popsicles with your flavors of choice on a silver tray for free. You can drop off unlimited loads of laundry for free, and your clothes will be returned later in the day wrapped with twine and a sprig of lavender. There's a snack menu filled with all of the treats both kids and adults love that can also be enjoyed at no additional cost. And if you want something special for breakfast, just let them know, and they'll make sure it's waiting for you when you come down in the morning. And of course, it's all complimentary. Not to mention that 3 times a week, magicians perform tricks at breakfast simply because it's fun. There are countless families who, after a week staying in LA, visiting Disney and Universal Studios and the Pacific Ocean, then get home and ask their kids what their favorite part of the trip was, only to hear their kids recounting how the popsicle hotline was the highlight of the week. And why is this? Because sometimes a little extra attention to details can make all the difference in creating something remarkable. Every single detail doesn't have to be perfect, because monotony doesn't register in our minds. Our minds are looking for peak experiences where something significant stands out and stays with us, sometimes for a lifetime. Which is interesting to think about. Instead of trying to do everything moderately well, what really matters is focusing on a few important things and doing them spectacularly and with gusto. That is where the magic happens. Which is why I'm thrilled to introduce you to another hidden gem in LA who is making magic happen in people's lives, Amanda Inchaustegui, who is ironically, just like the Magic Castle Hotel, also showing people how a little extra effort can create something remarkable in their lives. But instead of a popsicle hotline, Amanda does it through executive coaching with Novus Global. Amanda's married to her college sweetheart, with whom she's raising 2 boys to be confident men. She's a gifted communicator, and if you're interested in having a powerful conversation where you get clear on the vision for your life and get curious about what might be holding you back, Amanda is your person. And so without further ado, here is my friend and also my executive coach, Amanda Inchaustegui. Okay, Amanda, so this idea of getting clear on what we want so we can ask for it, where do we start in that process?
That's a great question. Oftentimes when people are having a hard time figuring out what it is that they really want, whether we're talking about what it is that they want with their life, like vision, or whether it's talking about what they want with their spouse or what they want with their extended family, the first place we go to is kind of counterintuitive, but it's going to complaints. A lot of times in the church world, we're told, do everything without complaining and arguing. And yes, it's in scripture. But as far as like with our work with the coaching, we love complaints. Because within a complaint is revealed a latent vision, a vision that is there sleeping. And so when we can allow ourselves to complain a little bit, like not the whining, but the complaining. And we define a complaint as either something is happening that we don't like, or there's something that we wish that was happening that isn't. And the other thing with complaints is they actually show that that there's care there. If I don't have any complaints about my marriage, or complaints about even like complaints about my city, or my relationship with my parents, or my relationship with my brother, it oftentimes shows that there's this apathy there, that I don't have a commitment to it. I don't have a vision for it. And there's some things where it's worth just setting aside. And it's like, no, I'm not committed to anything with that. But when there's a complaint there, it actually shows that I care about it, and there is a commitment there. And so oftentimes when people's like, I don't know what I want, it's okay. Well, what are some of the complaints in your life? What have you been complaining about? And then we sit in that and unpack it a little bit. Okay, because what is it that you really want? And oftentimes it's a shift, like a conversation to have, or it's a shift in like making a request for like if I have a complaint that my kids are leaving their clothes on the floor or whatever, or things aren't going well in my house, then I can make a request for other things. I can ask for what I want with my husband, and we can move towards what that vision is.
That's so good. I remember when we started working together, part of the initial conversation was me creating a list of things I'm tolerating.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating to kind of look at that list and be like, why are these in the back of my mind over and over? Why am I not doing anything about them? They're just kind of like small complaints that I'm living with and not really looking at. And so that was incredibly resourceful for me.
And it's amazing what those things that we're tolerating in our work, when I'm working with clients, every time before they meet with me, one of the questions, I haven't answered a bunch of questions, but one of the questions is, what are you avoiding? What are you complaining about? And what are you tolerating? And it's amazing what the energy that is spent when those things are happening in your life. Like when I'm avoiding something or I'm tolerating something, like if there's something like not like off in my house, it's like I see it all the time, and it just takes this energy, and it takes this mind, like, oh, I should do something about that. And then I have all this guilt and shame around why I'm not doing something like that. And it is so much energy spent sideways that, and oftentimes those things that I'm tolerating, I could actually get done in like 10 seconds. And it's like just to commit to doing it. And then all of that energy I get back that I can spend towards other things that are going to be more resourceful in my life for what it is I say I'm up to.
Do you have a regular practice of like checking in with yourself on those things? What does that look like for you?
So it is a mindset that I do engage with regularly. It's like if like my house is dirty, or there's this pile that is there, and it's like, oh, I should go through it. And it just keeps nagging me. I notice it a lot quicker than maybe I used to before I got into this type of work. And then I decide, do I want to let it go and like call it good, or am I actually committed to taking care of that? And if I am committed to taking care of it, when am I going to do it? And I do that. I do have space regularly in conversations with other people who hold space for me to notice what it is that I am tolerating or avoiding, and for me to help me to get clear on, is that something that I want to take care of, or something that, like, just call it good. And then I make a commitment around that, and we check in later. So, like, I have a regular practice with one of the other partners in our firm, where we send our commitments for the next week at the beginning of the day on Friday. And then we have a call on Friday, and he helps me to get clear on what those things are. And then that's what I do for the next week. So I think that those are the regular practices, but so, like, on my own, but it's also very much in the context of community. My husband and I are talking about it. Like, it's a conversation that's out in the open, and it's not like anybody is holding me accountable to it. But they hold space for me to give an account, to stand in what I say I'm committed to.
Man, that statement, I've heard you say it before, and every time you do, it's like amazing. Say that again.
We don't hold each other accountable, or somebody doesn't hold me accountable, but we hold space for people to give an account.
So good.
Well, we do. It's this, you talk about, accountability partners, and, oh, that person, I just need for you to hold me accountable. But in that, we're giving our power away to the other person. And so much of what I've learned in my life is just this commitment to empowerment, commitment to my own empowerment, and commitment to the empowerment of other people. And so even then, I don't want to hold you accountable, because I don't want to be responsible I got enough stuff to deal with on my own. So I don't want to be responsible for everybody else's commitments. That sounds exhausting. But I love holding space for other people, for a person, even my kids, like, hold space for them to make commitments, to make or break their commitments. And then we hold space for them to talk about what was going on for them, as if they did break the commitment, so that they can grow. But it's not like this shame thing, like, you need to get it together, you need to do what you say you're going to do. It's all about growth and empowerment for the other person.
Stepping into that empowered space is one of the gifts that you help people walk toward. And something that I really appreciate about you is that when I've encountered a lot of people who aren't willing to step into their empowered space because they feel like it's going to be too hard, but that's never kept you back. And that, to me, makes you completely the real deal, because you have done all of this work first, and you've lived through hard stuff and faced it with courage, so that you can help others realize that they don't have to, like, throw their hands in the air and be like, this is just all too much, I can't deal. But your posture that you bring to coaching is really, yes, this is hard, and yes, you can do it. And maybe there might even be moments of fun, which is super weird to think about. And so will you share about your journey and how it shaped your coaching perspective?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. And because it is hard. Like, I think that when I was younger, it was like, oh, this is so fun. And there was this honeymoon of empowerment, maybe, and taking risks and adventure as we moved from Kansas out here to Los Angeles with our kid. And it was really exciting. And then things got hard. And part of my journey is a history of pregnancy losses. I've had over a dozen of them after my second kiddo. Part of my story is a history of infidelity and sexual addiction in my marriage, and so both of those things, they can lead to a pretty victimized mindset if I wanted. Like, why are these things happening to me? And feeling very disempowered to not do anything about it. And this is my life. And I think that the mindset of owning my life and owning my power and owning who I know that God created me to be and the plans that He has for me. And Mandy, I am not going to lie. There are days where it's like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. And even the empowered place. And I love my people who will let me like victim out for just a little while because they know it's not going to last very long. And then it's this shift of, okay, what am I going to do? And what is it that I'm committed to? And what is the vision that I have for my life, that I know that God has for my life? And no matter how scary or how hard, to push through it, and even like figuring out what it is that I want. Okay, what is it that I want in this moment? What is it that I need? And making a request and taking action and moving forward in that. And it is a constant, messy work in progress. But I think that there is this fun, playful piece to it that I liked, because some of this stuff is really heavy and sometimes it is really, really hard. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take the pressure off, like in the great grand scheme of things, like we are not talking about the end of the world here, no matter how heavy that it is or it feels like it is. And let's just play. Like even right now, as I'm moving forward in a lot of areas in my life, it's like, I have done hard. This is fun. And I can relate to it as fun. And actually bring a whole lot of enjoyment into the growth process, into the risking. I don't need to carry, whenever that shame gets in there, man, it just steals all of it. So I like to play with a lot of these empowerment conversations, to take away like the pressure of, I don't know about you, I have a lot of performance stuff
Totally.
going on for me. Yes. And I like to achieve. And so even I think of this, like, I am going to conquer this whole empowerment thing. And then it's like, I'm just like failing everywhere. And then I can get on myself and it's just even like striving for everything so much and so hard. And when do I ever, take myself, let myself off the hook? But it's this weird paradox of going hard after my vision for my marriage or with my kids or with my work or whatever it is, and having a whole lot of fun doing it and finding such joy in it also.
Man, that's a powerful place to live your life from. One of the key pieces of your work is helping people recognize the rackets, which is a new word for me, that are shaping their beliefs and habits. And there's 4 key default responses that hold us back. And those are the need to look good, feel good, be right, and be in control. Will you talk about that and how they impact like our daily decision making?
Yes. So we talk about those as those are our human survival needs. Looking good, feeling good, being right, being in control. We love it. And we need it to survive. Like they're not bad. A lot of time in the coaching work too, we tend to want to moralize things. Especially in church-based and faith-based worlds, and good, bad, right, wrong. And a lot of time in the coaching work, it's getting away from that moralizing language and just looking at things as they are with no judgment. And so like looking good, we like to look good. Like we all get up and dress with intention for the day, and we like to feel good, and it's not bad to want to feel good. We want to feel loved. We want to feel appreciated. We like to be right. There's actually, our brain gets a neurological hit in the pleasure part of it when we are right. Like, we are wired to want to create that rightness, and we really like to be in control, as far even that empowerment piece of like, I can take control of my responses, my behaviors. Like, they're not bad things, but what happens is when they start to run us. And so it just comes with the skin. We like to look good, feel good, be right, be in control. And for me, it's really helpful to remember, especially when I'm interacting with other people. Whenever anything is coming out that might be irritating me about somebody, or like doesn't feel right for me. It's like, oh, like, where is being, looking good, feeling good, being right, being in control, showing up for that person? And like, we are all just so human. But the rackets, we run our rackets. So like, the whole idea of a racket is back to the Prohibition era with racketeering. And you would have the candy store in the front that had, it smelled good, and there would be music and kids, and then there would be that door. And if you said the code word, then you would get back, and there would be the smoke and the booze and all of that stuff going on there in the back. And so we run our rackets. We have these, and oftentimes they're showing up in those chronic complaints, like complaints that we have over and over and over again. When we're complaining about something like that, it's like, oh, that's a racket for me. When usually back behind it then is the look good, feel good, be right, be in control happening, which is why I'm holding on so tightly to that complaint, because I am getting something from that complaint.
Is there a way to recognize when one of those things is coming up for you? How do you kind of self-evaluate?
Yeah. So I think, like, what's fun is that we run our complaints. Like, usually I'm not the only one. And so again, like, I love doing this stuff within the context of community. And so it is this conversation that I'm constantly having with people in my own life and in theirs. So like, a really common racket for me that can come up is the I'm so overwhelmed or I'm so busy racket, right? So it's this complaint that I have a lot of the time, like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed out, there's too much to do, and boy, do I like to run that racket. So I listen to the complaint, and then I start to notice, okay, what are the behaviors and the beliefs that are going on for me that are reinforcing this complaint? So a lot of times if I'm overwhelmed, I'm procrastinating stuff, I'm avoiding things. I have beliefs that are happening about like either other people, like people are putting too much pressure on me for my work, or my kids just won't get it together, or my husband has gone to work too much. And so that's why I just have too much to do, or I can run, I have all these beliefs that are playing into reinforcing this racket for myself. And so then I say, okay, and even I think, like, there's no bad. I'll say that a lot. And it's just like, oh, there's no bad. Like, there's no shame here. So I'm going to get outside of it. And sometimes I'll even hold my hand out and like look at it. And it's like, okay, am I willing to just look at this and examine it and check it out? What is actually going on for me? And so then I think about, okay, what am I getting from running this I'm so overwhelmed racket. And oftentimes, so then I go back to the look good, feel good, be right, be in control. And usually it's not one or the other. It's a cocktail of the four of them. So like, how do I look good? It's like, oh, when I have a lot going on, at least for me, I feel really, really important. And, if I am running around busy, it's almost like I make up that gives me value. People want to be with me. They're making requests of me. I think the feel good, at least for me, there's a lot maybe of blame that can go into blaming my circumstances and all of the things that need to get done. And I can victim out and feel, I like it when people feel sorry for me, because then people are like, oh, Amanda, you're just, you're working so hard, you're doing so much. And that feels really good to get that type of affirmation maybe. And being right and being in control. A lot of times for me, when I'm looking at the being right, it's a lot about even being right about my judgments on other people. So if in being overwhelmed, I want to have judgment on people who I feel have these unrealistic expectations on me, then I get to be right about the expectations that they're having, which leads to that we don't have a clear agreement, which is a whole other conversation. And I also really like to be in control. So oftentimes by being overwhelmed, usually when I'm overwhelmed, a big part of it is that I'm taking on responsibility for quite possibly some things that are not mine to take responsibility for, which is a lot of my codependent stuff coming up or what have you. And I'm wanting to control other people. That is then creating this too much feeling in my own life. And so when I look at that, it's like, oh, I'm getting a whole lot from this overwhelmed racket. And then moving towards, okay, what it is that I'm committed to with my life? What is my vision here in this relationship? Or even, just taking one day at a time in today, this today feels really overwhelming. There's too much to do, or this relationship feels overwhelming. Okay. So if that's a racket that I'm running because I'm getting stuff from it, now what do I want? What do I want to do? What action do I want to step into? How can I shift this, for myself? Because I think that's whatever we'll talk about in our work, whatever experience we're having is an experience that we're creating. And so then the question shifts, like, not how can I get this pain of being overwhelmed or having too much to do or stress or anxiety, like, how can I get this to stop? It's okay, what is the reason behind why I'm creating this experience for myself? And if that's true, if I am creating it for myself, now what is the experience that I do want to create to myself, or for myself? I distinctively remember because we had gone through a really hard season, especially in the season with all the miscarriages. That was emotionally really hard. I mean, talk about hormones being out of control. I was either like first trimester pregnant or postpartum, or just sad for like 6 years. And so I started, the grief leaked sideways, and I would get really frustrated and angry. And I remember, I was like, I am going to choose to commit to calm. I'm going to commit to calm. And what happens is our brain wants to be right so bad that when we start to make commitments to that, when things would come up, I was like, oh no, I'm committed to calm. And my brain would actually go to work to make myself right about that. It was fascinating to me to watch. And so to the point where one time we were in one of our family meetings that we had with the four of us, and my youngest son, Elijah, he must have been like 8 years old. And we give affirmations. And when we give the affirmations, the following statement is, and the impact on me is, because oftentimes we affirm people because of stuff that like we like about them so that we can get more of it from them, because it makes us feel good. And he was like, Mom, I want to thank you for being calm. And the impact on me is that I'm more calm.
Wow.
I know, right? And my husband and I just looked just like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle of God happening right here, right now. Because that was not the tone of our home. But it did shift. It's like, I don't have to run this racket. And I could give a million reasons as to why that racket would make sense. I could totally justify it to be right about even wanting to run that racket. But it's like, what am I committed to sowing into my life and my family? And I think for me, even was like, I'm just going to play with this. I'm just going to play with this whole calm thing. I'm not going to put any shame around it. I'm just going to play. Like, this will be an experiment. This will be fun. And it's like, as it came to be, and it transformed myself, and nobody else needed to change. But it began to transform our home and create a whole new system. When I got clear on the racket that I was running, and then chose, because if I'm saying all the time, I'm so stressed out, I'm so overwhelmed, or like our brain will go to work to prove that right too. And so as it began to shift what I was saying, then my life went to work to make myself right about that. It's fascinating to watch.
I think when we know that our brains are trying to prove us right, it really gives us like a superhero trick in a way.
Absolutely.
And then also the language that you give with the racket and the look good, feel good, be right, be in control. In a way, it's helping us to look at our lives a little more objectively, and neutralizing all of those negative connotations or emotions that we attach to it so that we can really make significant changes. So that's been so helpful to me, and a gift that you've given to me. Can we talk about feedback a little bit?
Yes.
So, and we've talked a lot about this because of the nature of my work. I get a lot of feedback on things from my outfits to my theology. I mean, just a wide range of feedback, right? But the way you talk about feedback is so useful in that feedback is fun, which kind of blew my mind a little bit, just reframing how I viewed feedback. Can you just share about how feedback can be resourceful for us?
Yes. We work so much in the giving and receiving of feedback. And I think that like there's two parts of it. Like there's an art to giving feedback, and there is an art to receiving feedback. And we avoid both of them. I think even like in parenting, I don't know if I felt growing up like I could give my parents feedback on how things were occurring to me in our home. And so one of the things that we've even attempted to instill with our family is this ebb and flow of giving and receiving feedback as part of being an empowered person. And so there's a few like tricks to giving and receiving feedback. And I think for even with the receiving feedback is understanding that feedback is all about perception. It's not about judgment. someone might intend for it to be that way, but they're not saying this is how this is. It's how that whatever it is occurring to them. And so when I can hear feedback, it's like, oh, that's how it's occurring to them. Truth be told, it actually tells me a whole lot more about that person that then I can get curious about, which is fun. But it's all perception. So if somebody gives me some feedback, I don't have to take that as judgment, but I can take it and it's like, okay, how do I want to leverage that for moving me forward in my life? So and this is when then we can receive feedback from anyone. So like I had picked my son Xander up from school, and he had just turned 12, and I had picked him, asked him how my day was, and I was complaining about a decision I had made in work or something. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I hope that this doesn't blow up really big. This could be a really big problem. And what if this goes down and this and this and this, and creating this whole story and scenario. And he was like, Mom, can I give you some feedback? And then I was like, right? I was like, sure, Xander. And he was like, so as it occurs to me, when there's a lot of times when you think that you did something wrong and you get all worried about it, but you didn't really do anything wrong and you don't get in trouble, and what you're worrying about doesn't actually happen.
Wow.
He's like, I know. He's like, that's what I make up about it. It's like, is that how you say it, Mom? Cause he knew like he had that language, this is how it occurs to me. This is what I make up about it. Because he knows like it's about perception. So he wasn't telling me in a judging way, Mom, stop talking about, how you're going to get in trouble all the time. You know that you never really do, and da, da, da. But he just shared his perception. And then I was really quiet because I took it and I was thinking about it and thinking about that I do that. And then I was thinking about, okay, why do I do that? What do I get from doing that? My fear, my insecurities, my want to control, my want to look good. What does this cost me when I spend this energy worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet, and not standing in the confidence of my decisions, and all of these beliefs. So I'm having this whole conversation now with myself in my head. It was silent. And then he jumped in and he started to give me advice. I was like, whoa, Xander. And he was like, but wait, you were quiet. I was like, okay. So the next coaching tip is you allow the person to think through it, and you can ask some more questions. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, the silence isn't bad. The silence is really resourceful in allowing somebody space to think through their own journey. Like, we don't need to come in with all the questions and the answers, and we can get curious then about it together and explore what's going on for that other person. And so I really appreciated his, and that's where it's like, I wonder what we miss when we create systems where people don't give feedback because we're scared of what the other person is going to think, or that they're going to get mad at us, or it's going to hurt their feelings. We create these systems where there are only certain people that we can receive feedback from. And what would it look like if there was this really healthy community where people can share their perceptions? And this is like the big thing with giving feedback, is that it being in line with that person's vision. So if I don't know what your vision is, I want to get curious about that before I offer any feedback. Because if I don't know that that's something that you care about or is a commitment on your part, then it's like, oh, that person is getting exactly what they want. But if I know that they are up to something in their life and there is something that I see that potentially could be getting them in the way, and I withhold that perception from them, is that really serving them? And so I get like, oh my gosh, what would friendships look like where we have this agreement around giving and receiving feedback, and we knew what the vision that our friend was up to with her life, or we are clear on the vision that our spouse has for their life, or we're clear on the vision that our kids have for their life as parents are wanting to give them feedback. Because I felt like a lot of time with parents, like the feedback was actually more in line with what my vision was for them, not necessarily the vision that they had for themselves. But then when we can have a conversation with the feedback around their vision, it becomes incredibly resourceful. And it's not, the feedback isn't rooted in judgment. And I don't, even like that, like detaching from the feedback, like I don't got to be right about it. It's like, this is just what I'm observing or what I'm noticing. You do with it what you want, but this is how it's occurring to me. This is what I make up about it. And we can both be really detached from it. And then that person can do whatever they want with it. There's been some times where I've gotten some really, really hard feedback, and it wasn't necessarily said in the way that I would have chosen to have it said to me. But in fact, one time, someone told me, they told me I was fragile. And I was showing up really emotional in a setting, and pretty in a victimized place, and like fragile to where there wasn't a whole lot that it would take to take me out, and I didn't like hearing that, because how I perceive myself is very strong, and I am empowered, and I've been through a lot of stuff, and I can do this. And it was, I took it, and I got angry at first. And then I said, okay, let's just play for a minute. What if I am fragile right now? How do I want to relate to that? It's like, oh, there is a lot going on for me right now. Okay, what do I need? Oh, I need some self-care right now. What are requests that I want to make of my husband? What are some limits that I need to set around work? What do I need right now? And then it's like, I am fragile. I am human. Like, I am not this superwoman. And so it was like this, oh, I'm going to leverage this one for this incredible, like, I am not all powerful, and can this paradox of like no judgment on fragility. And yes, and this is why I need Jesus. And these are requests that I can make for myself to move forward in strength, because I am committed to that and showing up powerfully for my family and my work and my relationships, whatever that is. And so and then I had a conversation with that person afterwards, thanking them for that feedback and sharing with them how I was leveraging it to move me forward in my life. And the truth is, that person did give the feedback because they care significantly for me. And I appreciate that they had the courage to say that to me. So that's, I think, I dream about things, and like, it's like dreaming of this world where we can, without judgment, give feedback as we like being these courageous advocates for each other, and having the humility to receive it and the courage then to move forward in that. But it's like, I can leverage this for however I want. So I can either like throw it out the window, or it's like, how can I use this to move me forward in whatever it is I say I want.
Okay, I have a question that I ask everybody. That's my favorite question to ask. And that is, what is the best advice you never got?
The best advice I never got. I don't think I was ever told how messy and hard love is. And love would be. Like, even as I think of the word, the visual pictures that come into my head are these hearts and flowers and red and pink and cheery, happy. And that is part of it. But I think I've learned so much in my life that love is this blood, sweat, tears, incredible sacrifice of myself and all of those, even those human things, the looking good, the feeling good, the being right and being in control, that stepping fully into just completely like getting rid of those and stepping into love. I don't think I knew how deep it would go.
Hey, you made it to the end of the podcast. Thanks so much for listening today. Now go to Instagram and make sure to follow Mandy Inchaustegui, where I post very infrequently, but when I do, it's really spectacular. Now go out and have more fun, and don't come back until you do.